and also entonces, as I mentioned that, I do just want to take a quick moment to like recognize the moment that like the time that we're in, right? And also provide a space of solidarity for folks in Palestine who are fighting against attacks from state and corporate actors, right? And against their self-determination and ability to stay in their homes, right? And in many ways, it reflects the fights that we are experiencing here as well, including through this issue and the fight against the carceral state. So I also just want to just take maybe just a few seconds to just pause in solidarity. And then I'm also just going to ask Jack if you can share a statement that Media Justice has shared today. And I invite folks to read it and also share any reflections you might have, our resources in the chat. But just take a few seconds and then we'll continue. Okay, thank you, everyone. Today's program is going to be a wealth of information and knowledge and experience that we're all going to learn about. We have to keep grounded in really the impacts and the harms of electronic monitoring through this project of Unshackling Freedom and the learning series in particular. We've been trying to break down different aspects of it, right? From just a general introduction through the Electronic Monitoring 101 workshop we've done. We've also done work around reclaiming the narrative and the language that's used around electronic monitoring and its harms. And we've also been thinking about different tactics and strategies, right, that can be used to go after these programs and the ways that private companies and also government officials maintain this system. But today we want to take some time and learn from folks who are taking additional tactics and strategies to support our communities in this fight. So we're going to hear from folks from Families for Freedom who are going to share about the harms of EM from mental, physical, economical, even harms, right? And then also from folks from like Dignity and Power Now, from Trudy, who will be sharing different tactics and resources that they use while they're supporting folks in communities who are experiencing this type of trauma and other type of trauma. And then we're also going to be hearing about from Compa Nilsson, different ways that through his experience, storytelling and sharing his story has been a vehicle, right, for healing as well as reclaiming situations for power, right? And so I am really excited to, again, be able to have this space with all of you. But to kick us off, I'd like to ask all of you a question, right? So if you'd be down, please drop in the chat. Where does your power come from, right? Where does our power come from? And so, just think about that for a little bit and drop it in the chat, and then we'll go from there. And if anybody has also any issues with the chat by chance, or maybe you're on mobile and it's easier to say it out loud, feel free to come off of mute and share out loud too. I see some folks sharing already. Our voice, my ancestors, my lineage. Our power comes from our voice, speaking our truth, our lived experiences. Power comes from the people, community bonds, relationships, neighbors, comrades. It comes from my struggles, from my community. It comes from educating, organizing, acting. So cool. Thank you all so much. And if folks want to keep adding other forms of where it comes from, I feel like some of what's already being shared is reflecting of what we're going to talk about today, right? That often our experiences, which are not always fun, are not always happy experiences. Many times our people are experiencing pain, right? Are experiencing trauma, are experiencing harm and violence. And so often that informs the way that we see things and also act and fight for our liberation and also express our power because of that, right? And just also reading more ancestors and descendants, community, love, and rage. Yes, thank you so much. And I just thank you all for sharing, right? I think that's really helpful to ground us in this workshop today. And now I'm going to introduce Janae from Families for Freedom, who's going to be sharing this next section of the workshop, which is we're calling It's a Chain Reaction, the reach of EM's impact. And so she'll break down, through personal experience, the ways that EM has been harmful, and it continues to harm community members that she and others work with as well. So Janae, you there?
Hi, everyone. My name is Janae Cawthon. I'm the Executive Director of Families for Freedom. And I'm here to share my personal story with you. Back in 2005, I fell in love with an immigrant from Haiti. He was detained by ICE at the age of, I want to say 35, for a crime he committed when he was 18. And he served his time. It was a nonviolent drug offense. During that time, ICE put an ankle bracelet on him. They put him on a curfew. They had something on our phones where it would, at 7 o'clock, he had to be by the phone. And it just broke my heart to know that a mistake he made as a teenager still haunted him till recently when he won his immigration case. He was fighting this immigration case for over 30 years. They use these monitors to tear down people's self-esteem, to exploit them, and it's actually a waste of money. And it's when I see someone with a monitor, or recently I had to go to a press conference, and it just brought me back to slavery, where they would put chains on our ankles and our arms of our ancestors. And I have Diani, she's going to show you some pictures of one of our members. His name is Robert Payton. He recently got an ankle monitor placed on his ankle. Diani, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to do the screen share now so you can see. You want to see the toolkit first or the images?
I want them to see the images so I can speak about his case.
Got it.
And
Okay.
Sorry for my little stuttering. I just came from speaking at John Jay. I'm still at John Jay College. I had to do another event a few minutes ago. So the picture that you see on the screen is a bunch of migrants, and you see they're Black and brown, and they all have ankle monitors on their ankles. Immigrants of the Black and brown community are faced with harsher sentences when it comes to the monitor system. Can you pull up Robert? This picture is a toolkit for Robert Payton. He was convicted over 35 years ago for nonviolent drug offense in Harlem, New York, at the age of 25. He's now 57 years old. He was sentenced to life in prison for a nonviolent drug offense. He was released from prison 2 years ago because he filed an appeal and to ask the judge to take the life of his case. During his appeal, he stated to me that the judge told him, "I see that you're a changed man and you deserve a second chance," and released him. Unfortunately, since Robert is not a citizen of the United States, he was only a green card holder at the time of his offense. He was ordered deported by ICE and Customs Enforcement. Thanks for adding the link to the toolkit. Can you get to the picture where he has the ankle monitor. It's not in the toolkit. Three weeks ago, I went with Robert to 26 Federal Plaza where he was placed in a room. And the ISAP program is the program that runs the monitoring program. They placed the ankle monitor on his ankle. Just imagine, he's a 57-year-old man. He paid his debt to society, and now he's being repunished because of his immigration status and the color of his skin. And the reason why I bring up his immigration status is because only Black and brown migrants are treated this way. We see migrants from the Ukraine and other countries such as Russia. They don't get placed on monitors as much as we do in our community. And this causes, it's three different levels to this. One is emotionally draining for the person that has to wear this monitor, also for their loved ones and for their children. Me personally, being a wife at the time when I was married to him, I remember trying to get him out of his depressed state. And I said, hey, let's take the kids to the water park because it was hot. It was the summertime. And he said he did not want to go. I convinced him to go, but he had to be in the water with socks on and everyone's looking at this monitor. When people see that monitor, they just think that you just did so many, it's heart-wrenching. Economically, he was the type of person, he ran his own business. And sometimes he would work 12-hour shifts. But with the monitor, he was subject to reducing the time that he can go to work. And a lot of other people who's on monitors, they can't work double shifts because they're on a curfew and they have this monitor. Certain jobs that they would like to apply for, they can't apply for the jobs, such as working in the airport, cleaning up the airport because you have a monitor on. They're gonna feel that you're a public safety risk. So this monitoring just doesn't affect the person with it, it affects their loved ones and everyone around them. If you look closely at the picture, you'll see Robert coming out of 26 Federal Plaza, and that's me standing next to him. And he was showing the monitor that they pressed on his ankle. He has medical conditions, and he also has problems with both of his legs because he suffered with bad diabetes. And even he spoke to the deportation officer and explained to him that, could you do an alternative because this is gonna affect my health? And they still put it on. And a few days after them putting it on, he had to be rushed to the hospital. So he thought that was going to be, I guess, his day of joy where they'll take it off. Immigration made him come right back and they resized him for the monitor. So these things, right, the money that they use to pay for this program, they can use it to provide mental health services and things of that nature. Since Robert has been released from prison, he runs a non-for-profit that's based in Harlem where he helps at-risk kids and he teaches them how not to make the same choices he made growing up in a single parent home. He also has a suicide hotline that connects to his cell phone. So when kids are at their wits' end, they call him and then he speaks to them and goes to spend time with them and just convince them that life is not that bad. You know, you have someone here for you. And after him speaking about all of the positivity that he does, he's still being treated like that 25-year-old he was 34 years ago. Deanna, you can take the picture off. Does anyone have any questions? You can drop them in the chat or raise your hand.
I see Marlon.
Yes. Yes, I'm very sorry to hear that that's happening to you and your husband. And I just feel like it's a waste of taxpayer money that they would do that to him when you have all of these, what do you call them, white supremacists walking around and they don't have any, I guess, these monitoring devices on them. How do you feel about that?
I feel that racism is still here. You know, our ancestors fought so hard for change and we still have to go through it. Even, I mean, my condolences to anyone who's Muslim or Jewish, but I just want to bring up a point. President Biden risked his life and went overseas and vowed to give Palestine $100 million, but he won't implement that type of money into programs that help migrants of Black and brown complexion. And that breaks my heart because charity is supposed to stop at home. This government makes the money. When we ask for resources for our children, they don't give it to us until it's too late. I remember going through problems raising my teenage son when his dad was detained by ICE. And I went and tried to get like a PENS petition put on him because he didn't want to come home. And they told me, oh, you can't put a PENS petition because he doesn't have a criminal record. So I said, that's what I was trying to prevent. Thank God I found a Hispanic police officer who had that Explorers program, and he took my son under his wing and he said, Janae, I got you. We need more people like that in this community because this monitoring system is tearing down families. I've seen mothers walking around with monitors on their ankle just because they was trafficked here from Texas to New York. They taken the migrants in the Black and brown community and they making us feel like we're less than, and I know we're not. We have to stand up and we have to speak out against injustices. That's why this work is very important to me. And that's why I have learned to turn my pain into power. When this first happened, my heart was torn because everyone makes mistakes. And this man, who's the father of my children, he got in trouble when I was a little girl because he's about 12 years my senior. And he had to still pay for a crime that he did over 30 years ago. He served his time for it. Then when he came out, he still wasn't free because they put him on a curfew of 7 p.m. A grown man having to be told that he has to be on a curfew at 7 p.m. And then he's walking around with an ankle monitor. We wanted to take the kids to Disney World. He had to ask for permission. And then when we get to JFK Airport, they took him in a special room. And they had to, like, he said they ran his pedigree to see whether he was a flight risk. And we were together as a family. So this situation is very sad. And they don't look at the emotional part of it, the financial, they're wasting money. They need to push for some sort of reform, the same way they was pushing us to get the COVID vaccines that didn't work. They still have places in New York City where you see people waiting on corners, getting paid using taxpayers' dollars to take COVID tests, and nobody goes to visit them because we have COVID under control. It's here to stay. But then they'll take this monitoring, thousands and thousands of dollars per person to put a monitor on their ankle.
And that's funny. I thought of monitoring as being an electronic device, but you really informed me. Because I mean, they got so many terrible things they're doing with this surveillance. I never had even thought about that electronic device. That is off. I'm very sorry this happening to you.
Yeah. I mean, it happened. I'm not going through it now, thank God. But now I have other families that I'm helping that's dealing with it. You want to be on the phone with your friend and then it's beeping like the CIA. They can't even talk on their phone. And then they force you to have a landline, some of them. And I don't have a landline, I only have a mobile device. Then if you tell them that you want to not have the landline, they put track on your cell phone. And then some of those monitors talk because one guy we're helping, he stated that he went over the summer, he was going to Long Island and the thing started saying that he was out of radius and he was in a car full of people. Then his phone rang and his deportation officer asked him where he was going. It's sickening.
Criminalization. It's the same criminalization. That's what it is. Injustice.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It's very
exactly
bad.
what it is. Discrimination. It's awful.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Marlon, for bringing that up, and also Janae for sharing. As folks heard, right, it is mental impacts, physical impact. It's not just on the individual, but also family and those around them, right? Also the economic harms, right? Really, as I've heard folks articulate as economic warfare, right? Where our public funds are being extracted to being used against us, but then also on top of that, the types of ways that people are limited from even being able to make a living, right? It is a combination of ways that our folks are being attacked. So thank you again so much, Janae. I am going to bring in Trudy, who's going to share some about the way that Dignity and Power Now supports folks who are experiencing different aspects of like trauma and different tools. But folks also continue to have questions in the chat. Please drop them, and then we're gonna have some time hopefully later on. So yeah, Trudy.
Thank you. So good to be here. I'm trying to turn my camera on. There we go. This is a very rich conversation. I really appreciate Janae and and breaking down exactly how electronic monitoring affected her family. And for DPN, surveillance is one of the major issues that we look at when we look at imprisonment. Electronic monitoring, as well as folks surveilling people that stand up for their family members. I can't tell you how many families I work with that have police following them around their neighborhood, contacting their children out on the streets, all because a family member has raised the question about the legitimacy of the death of their loved ones in police hands. So these are generally the families that we work with. They're folks who are being surveilled by LA County Sheriffs and LAPD. But we also know how electronic monitoring is tearing at the fabric of our families. And Janae basically broke it down when she was talking about how, her former husband couldn't get on a ride because he couldn't get his monitor wet. So I just wanted to briefly go over some of the toll that is caused by electronic monitoring, and also to say how our healers work with folks that are traumatized by state sanctioned violence. So the first thing that pops to my mind as a condition of wearing a shackle is that you're paying for this privilege. Some people pay $5 a day to have this shackle, and others pay $25. And if you miss a payment, you can end up in jail, or if you're late on a payment, you can end up in jail. Another thing is that these monitors often cause skin irritations. Everybody cannot have these monitors next to their skin. And Janae brought this up when she was talking about someone who has a shackle on, and the shackle was interfering with their challenge of diabetes. And so these are the types of folks that we would say, first, first and foremost, let's find some healthy remedies to the skin irritations. What type of natural oils, natural creams can we put on your leg or arm or wherever it is to protect you from breaking out? And probably even more important than that is the advocacy that we do with different agencies like the ACLU or the National Lawyers Guild, where we have them advocate for folks who are having problems wearing the monitors. And then, I mean, what I find to be really disturbing is that some people are shackled for life, that this is a life sentence. And again, it was brought up a few minutes ago that there are people who are on these monitors for life for nonviolent crimes, like, having marijuana. And then, you know, we work with women who are having, women and men who are having problems in getting procedures such as MRIs, mammograms, x-rays, and CT scans. They can't be done while a person is wearing a monitor. And most states have no clear policy on how to get those tests done. So we find ourselves advocating for folks who need to have these type of tests done. And we realize how difficult it is, or how long the waiting period can be. So like in California, where I am, the rules require that the person carry an activated device to the medical procedure into the operating room. So you can take it off, but it has to be on your person or near your person. So what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do in terms of working with families like the gentleman from Haiti that Janelle was talking about? What we would do is have a couple of healers that would meet him at his house, at our office, and we would show them breathing techniques in order to bring their anxiety down, because this is anxiety producing, and we know this, right? And because it can be an irritant, and I would think that it's an irritant to most people, what we would also do is bring in an acupuncturist to come in and help relieve those parts of the body that are experiencing these abnormal impulses, right? And also, it's important that we be in community with them and to invite them to clinics and activities where they can be around other people that are having to deal with these systematic aggressions. So I mean, those are some of the things that we can offer, and with healers, with ointments, with tinctures, with meetings and community meetings That's the way that we deal with folks. And then too, I think it's also important to note that when people get ready to go and testify on their behalf, or they're in a stressful situation, our healers will often go with them and stand with them so that they're not feeling alone. They're not feeling alone, and there's also, we have a group of psychologists that work with us to help the families explain to children and other family members what wearing a shackle like this means to this person, and how it can be mentally disruptive, and how they can support them. And so we teach our language, not their language. So we don't say ankle bracelets. We will call it, just like Janae called it a few minutes ago, this is a shackle. And we try to help the families understand how unfair it is that folks are being reduced to something like cattle, to be kept up with. So yeah, so I'm going to put my email in the chat. Anyone that wants to get our toolkit, I can send it out to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trudy. I may have found the link. I dropped it in the chat, and so you could also check if it's that one. I'll briefly share my screen and like if you have any comments about it, go for it. Just to highlight a couple of pages from it of what you were just referencing. So, like there are wellness clinics that I see here, and I'll try to zoom in maybe a bit. That include various activities. And I see like community acupuncture, as you mentioned, massage therapy, meditative arts. There I go. I was reading and going way faster. So apologies for that. And then in the next page, I also think this is beautiful. It's called Freedom Harvest, a monthly pop-up arts and wellness event held outside of the LA County Jail. And so there you see a lot of the practices that are shared in community. So yeah, if you wanted to add anything else about this, Trudy, go for it. We have a couple minutes, but I wanted to highlight the toolkit that you mentioned.
I'm glad that you found it. That's perfect, Danny. Yes, and Freedom Harvest gives us life. This is the type of work that all of us look forward to, and it drives the guards and all of the prison staff crazy, because we're out there with arts and craft and music and massage folks, and we're giving out literature about our programs, our expungement clinics, our reentry programs, all of the good stuff that folks need when they're released from these cages. So, and we go once a month to different prisons within LA County. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to see if there are any questions from folks attending, or also Janae, if you wanted to add anything else. Otherwise, we are doing well with time, so we could take a few minutes break. But yeah, any questions or comments from folks? Marlon, yeah.
Trudy, thank you so much for sharing your toolkit. Do you offer resources for people in New York, or they have to be where you're located?
They have to be in Los Angeles County. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Marlon? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to thank the group Media Justice. I've met Makisha, I think, right before the coronavirus. We had a meeting at the Capitol. And in those days was Black Lives Matter. And they were calling them identity extremists. And we were trying to get certain Congress people to change that term and stop calling them identity extremists. And then right after that, the coronavirus happened. I don't know if that ever got straightened. But anyway, I don't want to get into it. But I just want to thank your group for taking up this surveillance issue. Because I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I want to tell you, they terrorize us, which you guys know because you work with Color Change. And I live in the county, and they up here in the county, they harass me every day. Because on social media, I write articles about them, about police violence. And I mean, I just had to contact the FCC today to file a complaint because you guys pointed out, I didn't even know they was using this cell phone site simulator thing. I think you guys said it was something like warfare and all this kind. And they use this stuff every day on my phone. I can't get on my phones in peace. I can't use my computer. I can't do anything. I've complained to everybody. I believe somebody at the legislature contacted the Baltimore County Police and asked them if they were using the cell phone site simulator. They admitted that they were. They sent them a letter indicating that they were using, and the chief right after that was terminated. The city, Baltimore City, after all that work you guys did, the mayor just gave them another $1 million to upgrade the cell phone site simulator. So I don't know what you guys can do to help me because I'm at my ends with, I have hypertension and it's all day long. And what they do here is sit up in the air and spy down on me. And I've complained and nobody does anything. So I don't know what I know you've been here to Baltimore City.
Hey
And
there.
they took it to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, who told them to stop it. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment rights. When people come out their house, they don't want to be targeted by planes and whatever else they're doing, electronic surveillance. They got aerial surveillance here. So what do you suggest I do? Because I'm at the point that I'm going to be looking into filing a lawsuit because I can't put up with it. I mean, I'm not in California where you guys are, so I can't get all this wonderful therapy.
I know
They
that.
don't do anything. You're on your own. It's just almost as bad as an ankle bracelet without the ankle bracelet, but it's still psychological warfare because that's what it really is.
Absolutely.
It's intimidation. Yeah. So I'll be
Absolutely.
quiet. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the really powerful things. Hi, everyone. My name is Maisha. I'm the campaign
Yeah,
director.
good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you, Marlon. Yeah, I mean, electronic monitoring, while we're talking about that specifically, a lot of what people are saying is the experiences with the surveillance tools that have, become really popular with policing, with the military, throughout the criminal legal system. And it's the same narratives, right? These are the tools that are going to keep us safe. And yet, when you really talk to people who are living on ankle monitors or living under constant surveillance, we know that these tools are having the opposite impact. In fact, particularly with electronic monitoring, it's not like the numbers of people that are being caged inside our jails and prisons are really changing because of the use of EM. It's just expanding the state's capabilities to incarcerate, to criminalize, and surveil us. So Marlon, I would, think about like organizing with some local groups. There's an incredible group, Organizing Black, that I had been in touch with a few months ago, who have been, really trying to fight against the facial recognition, crisis in Baltimore. And so, we're happy to make some email introductions and connect you to some folks that are more local with you. And I think the other thing I wanted to say too, to Trudy's point is, like, I got into this work because my grandfather was incarcerated in the state of New York. He was one of New York's longest held political prisoners. And when he got out, when we, fought for decades, I mean, it precedes even me and my family struggle for his freedom. But when we finally got him out, there wasn't a lot of resources around healing justice that I had available at that time. And so Janae, I that was a few years ago. I think there's a lot more material now, but if I see anything, if I'll chat with some friends and see if there's something, more local for what you're talking about, because it's a serious need, whether you're coming off of ankle shackles or whether you're coming home after 40 years or 20 years, like we need a strategy to address the trauma that our people have experienced, through these surveillance tools from incarceration, so forth and so on. So I just wanted to just say again, thank you for sharing that resource, Trudy, and thank you for being here. And thank you, Janae, for also sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say just very quickly, Stop LAPD Spying is based in Los Angeles, but they go everywhere around the world to talk about surveillance. And they have workshops on how to watch the watchers, how to keep an eye on those folks that are keeping an eye on us, right? So it would be good to be in touch with them, because you never know when they're gonna be on the East Coast or down south, and you want to be able to bring them into your group to have them talk.
That's good advice, Trudy. I was going to tell Marlon, if I was her, I would invest in a drone, and I'll spy on a spyer.
Yeah, well, I might need to look into that.
Yeah.
I guess you got to fight them with their own tools, right?
Exactly.
All right.
I mean, it's just annoying, like you guys said, with the level of taxpayer money that they waste. Because they harass me because I write articles about them. All over the state, not just here in Maryland, because they intimidate us here. With you guys, they intimidate us awful. I think we one of probably the worst states, because you guys are organized there. We don't really have a lot of organization here in Baltimore. They kind of intimidate us. But some of the other states, such as yourself, you guys are really organized. But if you don't have that organization, they can really run roughshod. And then you got to have the lawmakers too in the community. And for some reason, it's always been awful here. They've just always treated people in Baltimore like dirt. I don't know. I guess that goes all the way back to slavery or whatever. But I'm a predominantly Black city, but they've never really been treated with respect here. So I don't know what. I guess I have to do some kind of documentary on
or you can maybe organize something where you invite people from other places to come. I'll come. I'm not scared of Baltimore.
Oh, well, hey, look, I'd be glad to have you, because I mean, we had a little movement here after the Freddie Gray riots, and then they arrested most of those people and put them in jail. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they got rid of all the the activists. And the people like me, they prey on me every day, harassing me, I guess, try to, drive me out of my mind or whatever they're trying to do. But look, anybody who wants to come here, when you guys have been here, the media justice have been here with Color Change. And they did stop them in the city, but it's still going on. It hasn't stopped. But I would definitely, whatever help I could get, I would appreciate it. Because like I said, I'm about to the point there where I contacted FCC today and I filed a complaint. And I'm going to be filing some kind of lawsuit. Because I think that's the only thing you have to do. Because once they filed that lawsuit on them in the city, they kind of got rid of the point in the city. But then they came up here to different others to start harassing us. So I think you really have to bring a legal action to actually stop. Because if you don't, they're just going to keep doing it. Yeah,
we can definitely try to follow up. And I'm, Janae's ready to to pull up.
Yeah, that's what. Hey, look, anybody want to pull up? Come on, I'd be glad to have you pull up, and I'd be glad to work with you because I just started my nonprofit organization, Black Lives Do Matter. That's the name of my organization. I got mad at them because they got rid of Black Lives Matter. So I said, okay, so you want to get rid of Black Lives Matter? I'm going to have my nonprofit organization called Black Lives Do Matter, and you can, they've been after. They've really been.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are gonna definitely like follow up, right? And if there are I think that's definitely a big purpose of this workshop, to be able to learn from one another across regions, right? And like the different practices that are being used to support one another as individuals and communities. And so I'm excited to hear about the other aspect of what we're going to discuss today, which is like sharing our stories, right? In terms of this fight of turning our pain into power. So I'm going to pass it over to Nilsson. Nilsson, ¿me oyes? Se lo voy a pasar a Nilsson y les recuerdo que tenemos interpretación.
And I remind you that we have interpretation available. This might be in Spanish. So if you need to turn on your interpretation, please do so.
Yeah, Nilsson, te lo paso a ti.
Go ahead.
Se te apagó la cámara y estás en mute.
It's off.
Yep. Sí.
Okay. Bueno, pues a mí me gustaría compartirles un poquito, ¿verdad? De mi historia.
Share a little bit of my story.
Yo llegué a Estados Unidos en el
I came to the US
99,
in 1999.
19 por medio del
Twenty-nine.
program. Me pusieron en detención de migración.
And I was put in detention.
Como muchos saben, a principios del 2020.
At the beginning of 2020, the pandemic started, the courts
Entonces,
closed.
terminé estando en detención por 13 meses.
In detention for 13 months.
Adentro del centro de detención,
Center
pudimos luchar en contra de
to
la violación de derechos humanos que estaban pasando allá adentro en ese centro.
human rights violations that were taking place there.
Un centro que muchas personas sufrieron, ¿verdad? En este lugar, por la forma
Many people suffered
en la que ellos trataban
in
el
this place,
sistema.
right? Due to the way that they treated people, the system they had to deal with immigrant people was not right.
Pero cuando yo salí de detención,
But when I got out of detention,
empecé a compartir mi historia.
I started to share my story.
Me di cuenta de que para compartir mi historia,
I realized that in order to share my story,
era una necesidad para mí en el sentido de que era
a need from me, in the sense that it was my therapy.
me di cuenta que durante el tiempo que estuve
During the time I spent at the detention center,
no entro mucho en detalle en eso porque es algo que ustedes pueden
go out into detail because it's something that you can see for yourselves. There document story in detention, and it was recorded in tablets and video calls. That sometimes an image speaks louder than words. And so you can watch that documentary. But what is that while I was fighting inside in that detention center, was happening so overwhelming, so difficult. My feelings, not in a conscious way, but because I felt that if it wasn't that way, it would be too hard for me to fight because what was happening was too overwhelming. So when I got out and started sharing my story, I realized that what I'm sharing and my testimony of what I went through in detention, things have happened. Like my mind goes blank. It's as if someone turned the lights off for me and I was in a dark room. And that's due to the pain and suffering I lived in that detention place. And my mind refuses to go to that place. In Spanish, we say that to remember is to live again. Remembering those moments is very hard.
A la vez, el hecho de saber de que se le puede poner una cara,
knowing that you can put a face to the problem, because we need to acknowledge that it's enough, you know, enough of us being just another number. We're tired of being only a statistic, just another bar in a graph, just another number. So I said for me, it's super important to share my story. Right now, we're having the privilege of having this conversation, but lots of people are going through what I went through while I was detained. Wives that are going through the same pain, the same suffering that my wife went through while I was detained. Ability, going through the minds of children that are going through what I went through while I was detained. So this is something that continues. Right now I'm out of detention. I have the opportunity to be here with you. But there's still lots of people who are suffering at this time. And knowing that is still a burden, it's a heavy weight, and carrying the message is not easy. We need to recognize that at some point we need to pause, we need to breathe, know where we come from, where we go, to be able to choose our direction or where we're gonna head, because it's hard. Things that I experienced, I felt I had the sensation, something that I compare to what the sensation you get before you sneeze. coming up, you know, that makes you make that movement where it comes from. And I felt something similar, a similar sensation, but the result was different. It was not a sneeze. It was like a sensation that would come up over my body, and then my eyes started tearing up. And I say this because I didn't have a conscious feeling at the moment that came behind those tears. And I was like, am I going crazy? What's happening to me? Conversation with the therapist. And she said, and they said that that was the way in which I was letting go of all that pain, of all that suffering, and that I hadn't allowed myself to feel while I was detained. And sometimes you're in the middle of the highway, driving by yourself, listening to music, and I would feel that again. And it was like acknowledging that now I feel a different place. I'm safe, and I can bring my guard down, let myself feel. Living with that, I feel that pain. I didn't let myself feel when I was in detention, in the same fights I was having. And I can say that men and women that have gone through detention know what I'm talking about due to a simple reason. A lot of times, as detainees, we were suffering more for what our families were suffering outside than what we were suffering inside those detention centers. Our thoughts are I can't provide, I can't help. What are they going to do? How are they going to have the things they need? And that's what I was thinking. These are as a man, as a human being, come to mind. So thank God. Community helped my family in a lot of ways while I was in there, and that made me feel relieved. It was my truth. The reality is that there is healing when you share what you went through. For that, and I'm going to say this personally, for me, not sharing my story would be allowing my family's suffering to be in vain. True, I went through this. I don't want anyone to go through it. Make a difference so that we can break this chain. Not just ICE or detention centers. What comes after is a long journey, hard work, because as a community, we have allowed the government to hurt us. What is the strength of a community, which is family? It has broken families apart for a long time, and a lot of people don't understand this. For example, I can say that my wife took me from her side, but didn't provide her with any help. Say the problem was with him, not with you, so we're going to help you, we're going to help your son. That didn't happen. So not just Latin American people are suffering over this. US citizens are suffering. Why? Because have integrated in these,
¿verdad? Y es bien difícil que ellos
that we are part of it in every sense.
pero independientemente
And
de eso, ¿verdad?
although not everyone wants to accept it, but regardless of that, we need to know
Que si bien
that that
pueden
suffering,
detener, yo lo
while
estoy
it's
utilizando
true that they can detain me, while it's true that that suffering can stop me,
una fuente de energía,
as
¿verdad?
fuel, as an energy source,
Puedo transformar algo negativo en algo positivo.
transform something negative into something positive.
Voy a poder transmitir a las
And
personas
through my
la
story, I
realidad
can
de lo que es
transmit
la
people what the
detención.
reality is when you are
Y el hecho de
in
que
detention
espacios como este se abran para poder compartir de la
detention center, and the fact that we have these spaces to be able to share the reality of
en tu piel,
what is to have, you know, a device on your ankle
o sea, la presión
constantly,
emocional,
you know, the emotional pressure.
es algo, ¿verdad? Que no se está midiendo.
It's something that isn't being measured, because while it's true, at some point they take that off,
El daño causado por haber
caused,
tenido esto es algo que ellos no tienen en consideración. Y
it's
esa
something that they don't even
nosotros
consider.
estamos dañándonos como
And
comunidad.
that's the way in which we are hurting ourselves as a,
Que detener.
and that's something that we need to
Rapidito,
stop. Just to quickly wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought I've had for a while.
para que
And this thought
nosotros
is that in order for us to be able to heal
problema que estemos
from
enfrentando
any
como
issue or
comunidad,
problem that we're facing as a community,
primero tenemos que
first we need
quitar el
to
cuchillo de la herida.
take the weapon or the knife out of the wound. We
Que nuestra
can't
comunidad
wait
sane
for our
hasta
community
que
to
esto se
heal
detenga.
until this doesn't stop.
Mientras el cuchillo sigue en la herida,
While the
sigue
knife
haciendo esa
is
herida,
still in the wound,
la
that
herida
wound
no va a
continues to
empezar el
open,
proceso.
that wound won't start the process of
Tenemos
healing
que
itself.
detener estos
We
procesos.
need to stop these
Tenemos que levantar
processes.
nuestra voz
We
como
need to
comunidad,
raise our
unirnos.
voice as a community and
Tenemos que abrir
join forces. We
plataformas
need to
para que
open
las
up
personas que han sido
platforms
directamente
for folks who have been
afectadas
directly
se puedan parar y
impacted
decir por lo
can
que han
stand
pasado.
up
Tenemos
and
que crear
share what
espacios
they've
donde las
gone through.
personas
We
se
need to
puedan
create
sentir a
spaces
salvo
where
para
people
poder
can feel
compartir
safe
de
to
sus
be able to
historias,
share their
¿verdad?
stories.
Entonces, cuando nosotros
And
paremos estos problemas
when
que
we
estamos
stop
enfrentando,
these problems that
nosotros
we're
vamos a
facing,
poder empezar
we
un
can then
proceso de
be able to
sanación.
start a process of healing.
Mientras tanto,
Until
seguimos
then,
herida,
we're going to
pero nuestro
continue
proceso
living
va a
this,
tomar más
feeling this
tiempo.
wound, and that process of healing is going to take longer.
Volviendo
So,
un
going back a
algo
little bit
que
to
mencionado,
something that was being
es
mentioned,
reconocer de que
and it's
nosotros
to recognize that
somos
we
responsables
are
por lo que está
responsible
sucediendo.
for what's happening. In
En el
what
sentido
sense?
de
In
que
the sense
como
that
personas que pagan
as
taxes en este
people
país,
who
que
pay
pagan
taxes in this country,
nosotros
who pay
también
taxes,
tenemos
we
la
also have
autoridad,
the
¿verdad?, de
authority
decidir en qué queremos
to
nosotros que ese
say
dinero se gaste.
what we want that
¿Cómo lo
money to be
hacemos? Por
spent on.
medio de
How do we
nuestra
do
viva
it?
voz, por
Through
medio
raising our
de nuestro
voice,
voto, de elegir
through
la persona
our
correcta
vote,
para que nos elija,
through deciding
para
who are
que
the
nos elija,
who are the
¿verdad?
correct people to
Personas que
lead
nosotros
us.
sabemos que
Folks that
realmente
we know
van a hacer un
really
eco de la
are
voz
going
del
to
pueblo,
echo the
no de la
the
voz de
the
quizás
voice of the
intereses privados.
people, not the voice of private
Entonces tenemos
corporations.
que dar una
So
responsabilidad. Nosotros no
we
podemos
have a
decir,
personal
ah, es que el gobierno
responsibility.
tiene
We
dinero y nos
can't
está
say that it's the
apoyando y
government
ellos
doing
pueden
this and
hacer
they're
y
paying
pueden
for it and they want to
apoyarnos.
do it, or
También es
we
nuestra
can't do
responsabilidad
anything.
decir,
It's also a
queremos
responsibility
poner
to
un alto
say
a esto,
we want to
queremos que
stop
esto se
this.
detenga.
We want this
Y
to
esa es la
stop.
forma en la que nosotros
And that
podemos
is the way that we can
transformar el dolor
transform
en
the
poder
pain
y
into
utilizarlo
power
como
and shape it in that way.
Muchísimas gracias, Nilson.
Thank you
Muchísimas
so much,
gracias.
Nielsen. Thank you so much.
Excelente. Gracias por
Excellent.
compartir
Thank you
tu
so much for
experiencia
sharing from your
y también
direct
recordarnos
experience
de que es de
and for
nuestra
reminding
responsabilidad nosotros
us
también
the power of sharing our stories, but also in this community, which is and what we need to take action and exercise our power as a community. And I want to ask Trudy to see if I know that she has mentioned some recommendations earlier for folks who are sharing their stories. Like Nielsen has said, it's not easy, it's really hard, in a meeting, in an individual meeting, whether it's on a call like the one we're having today, or perhaps in a larger action with more people. In any of those spaces, it's not easy to share.
Entonces quería nomás ver si brevemente Trudy si tiene algunas recomendaciones para personas que están compartiendo sus historias. Y de ahí vamos a pasar a los siguientes pasos con la compa de Families for Freedom.
Lovely. My goodness. Neeson, you are so remarkable and so passionate. This is exactly the type of message that the public needs to hear. And your passion comes through as you are recalling the situation that you went through. And it's always, or I can't say always, but it is very often re-traumatizing when we start telling our stories. I tell the story of my nephew who was murdered in Cochrane State Prison by prison guards. And I have to tell you, that was over 30 years ago. And sometimes when I tell that story today, 30 years later, I'm still grieving. And it's at those times that we need folks that understand this walk that we have to go through, standing with us and letting us know that we're not alone. So some of the ground rules for being in healing spaces is to get a sense of the space that you're in and what that person needs. And that, so you're walking up to a person that, let's say, is sharing their story at a community meeting, like the sister from Baltimore. She's jovial and so bright about sharing her experiences of being surveilled. But I can tell you that this is probably one of the most difficult conversations she has with people. Because, for a number of reasons, sometimes people don't believe you that police wouldn't do that, or what did you do that caused the police to do that? Or, well, girl, you just need to get over it. It's all of these insensitive things that go said and unsaid because we're feeling creatures. We know when people are blowing us off, whether they say it or not. So it's important for folks like us that are healers and who have been through this to approach that person and just say, I heard what you said, and I want to let you know I am here for you. I am here with you. And just stand there. And you don't have to touch them. You don't have to do anything. Just standing there lets them know, I got your back. I'm with you on this. And if they become emotional, you can ask them, is it okay if I give you a hug right now? And this hug is probably just as much for me as it is for you, because I'm feeling this pain. Is it okay if I hug you? And if they say yes, then hold on to them. Just grab them and hold on to them. You know, we always say, take a bag of healing modalities with you wherever you go. I've got my, you know, my kids call it my juju bag, right? Because I got my tinctures in it that helps to calm people. I have other flowers that, you know, that brings about peace. You know, just smelling them will bring about peace. Oil that helps folks' bodies relax, the nervous systems. So think of various things that you can take with you when you are going into these spaces. And the same holds true for folks who are about to testify, to tell their stories. Because while it feels good getting it out, it's also triggering often, not always, but it also triggers that trauma all over again. So take care of yourself. Make sure that you have some type of natural medicines. And if you look through that guide that Danny sent, it will tell you the different types of herbs and crystals and all of that. I don't leave home without my rose crystal, because people are going to piss me off while I'm driving. And I just reach over in my bag and get my rose crystal and rub my arms and my heart so that I can calm down some. So, you know, it's about helping oneself and being able to love upon yourself and know that you are designed to do this work. You are designed to be resilient, but you are also designed and dedicated to making sure that you are in good health and that you are loving you. So I'm willing to talk to anybody who wants to come on. We have folks that healers that are part of our group that get on Zoom calls and give workshops for free in how to make up tea blends that help to calm your nervous system, how to make up tinctures that you can take with you in order to relax your body, relax your mind. So just know that that's open to you, and I'd be more than happy to help provide that.
Thank you so much, Trudy. I appreciate those reminders, right? That sharing our stories isn't always easy. It can also require some support, right? And so different ways that we can, one, take care of ourselves as individuals, but also look out for one another, right? And being there as a support for somebody who is sharing. And also, I think it is a real reminder of being mindful, right? Of even asking, hey, are you okay to share today? You know, like, is it cool, right? And like all of this process of recognition of one another and our needs. And I think that's a very powerful part of organizing work, right? It is doing campaigns, it is doing actions, but it's also this mutual aid that we need to sustain. I know we're a little bit short on time, so I just really want to take a moment to appreciate all of the folks who shared today, and who, you know, have broken down so many aspects of the importance of the ways that we can express ourselves, to, again, as we've named the event. And like, I would also just want to individually appreciate Janae, because like turning our pain into power was a framework and an idea that she shared, and the reason why we organized this space, right? And so I also want to appreciate folks who, again, also shared their stories this evening, and all of the wonderful resources and tools. I want to pass it over to Diani to see if he can help us out with facilitating a couple of minutes of either, folks have questions or anything. And also, Janae, I saw you came on camera. So I didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
I don't, Janae, did you have anything you wanted to add on?
Yeah, she said no, so you can go ahead.
I'm facilitating questions for Fairness to Freedom, correct? I don't know, on my screen, I'm not seeing anyone with their hands raised.
And if folks don't have questions, that's okay too. I'm just wondering, we wanted to add some space near the end to see if folks had any questions.
And if anything, sorry, Marlon, I'm gonna get to you. We will drop our contact. If it's not in like an email thread, I can drop it in the chat for you guys as well. And our website, if you guys have any questions, you can contact us there on our contact form or with our direct email. But go ahead, Marlon. I think you had your hand raised.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for having this forum. It's been very helpful. I wanted to address Trudy. Thank you so much for listening to, I guess, my story. I came into contact with them years ago. I had an incident with a false arrest over my aunt's house. And I actually filed a complaint against them. And that's how, I guess, the whole, because everybody wants to know, well, how, why are they messing with her? So that's how it kind of started, from this lawsuit that I filed against them. And my lawyer told me, if you ever file a lawsuit against them, I don't know if it's everywhere else in any other state, but here, then they're going to like harass you the rest of your life. And I didn't believe it at the time, because I was like really, really young. And I was like, oh, I don't believe that. But he was right, because ever since then, it's been this constant harassment. And, what do you do? So I just kind of wanted to let Trudy know that's kind of how it kind of started from that. And, I guess it kind of starts from somewhere, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and there are a lot of different reasons for sure that our folks are being targeted and our communities being surveilled. And I just want to read out loud also Janae's comment. Thank you all. Let's continue to work together to destroy this broken system. Good night. But like a system that really truly is harming our communities, right? So yeah, I once again, I want to appreciate everyone who is here this evening. I think we can close out a little bit early, and we'll follow up with the recording and materials. And thanks all for joining us.
Danny, thank you so much. This has been really wonderful.
Of course,
Thank you
Have a good
for
one.
inviting me. I missed a couple of other ones. I apologize.
It's all good.
Because I know you had two other ones, and there's something crazy going on, and I missed